In a small village, a beautiful girl's reflection began to change every time she looked in the mirror. But it wasn't black magic doing it. It was a secret curse she brought upon herself. What could make a woman's own beauty turn against her? In a time before our fathers' fathers, nestled between a forest of ancient trees and a river that whispered secrets to the moon, there was a village. Life moved with the rhythm of the seasons, the planting, the harvest, the harmattan dust, and the coming of the rains. And in this village, there lived a girl named Cynthia. She was the only daughter of two simple farmers, Mama and Papa John, who loved her more than the first rain of the season. But Cynthia's beauty was anything but simple. It was a loud, demanding thing, a spectacle. Her skin was the color of rich earth after a rain, and it glowed as if she had swallowed the sun. Her eyes held the sparkle of the stars you only see deep in the countryside, far from any man-made light. Her hair was a midnight crown, thick and long, a river of darkness cascading down her back. The elders would watch her pass and say the gods had spent extra time shaping her from the clay of the earth. But the vessel, so perfect on the outside, held a heart full of pride. It was a cold stone in the center of a beautiful, warm garden. Her days did not begin in the fields or at the stream. They began with a ritual. She would wake, long after the roosters had sung themselves hoarse, and sit before a small, simple mirror her father had bought her. The mirror was her most prized possession. It was her subject, her worshipper. She would stare into it, turning her neck slowly, watching the light catch the elegant curve of her jaw. She would pout her lips and marvel at their fullness. Who, she would whisper to her own reflections, more beautiful than Cynthia? Her voice was soft, a secret shared between herself and the glass. No one, not in this village, not in this world. Her mother would enter the room, her hands dusted with yam flour, her face etched with a gentle worry. Cynthia, my child, the sun is high. Please, come help me in the kitchen. Cynthia would not even turn. She would let out a sharp hiss, like a snake disturbed in its rest. Me, my fingers are made for jewels, not for the dirt of yams. Let my brothers do it. Their hands are not as fine as mine. A shadow of sadness would cross her mother's face. She would look at the stunning creature she had birthed, a stranger in her own home, and walk away without another word. And so it went. When the other girls of the village walked to the river, their laughter echoing as they balanced water pots on their heads, Cynthia would stay behind, meticulously oiling each strand of her hair. When the village gathered for community work, the sounds of their collective effort a song of unity, Cynthia's hut would remain silent. Inside, she would be posing, practicing the smile she would one day give to her king. One by one, her friends, who had once adored her, began their own lives. They married humble, hard-working men, farmers, fishermen, men with calloused hands but kind hearts. Cynthia mocked their choices openly. Zara, she would laugh, her voice like breaking glass. Your husband's teeth look like roasted corn. To another, she'd sneer, Queen, your man still rides a bicycle? A grown man. Their joy in their simple lives was a fire that fueled her jealousy. Let them enjoy their poor love, she'd say to her mirror. Cynthia is destined for a palace. I will wear gold from my head to my toes and be carried by servants. Then came the day of the great market. It was a riot of life and color. The air was thick with the scent of fried plantain, spicy peppers, and damp earth. Drummers sat under the shade of a giant mango tree, their rhythms the heartbeat of the village. Cynthia prepared herself as if for war. She wrapped her body in the finest cloth, a shimmering fabric that caught the sun and threw it back at the world. She walked not on the ground, but above it, her waist swaying in a proud, hypnotic dance. Heads turned, whispers followed her like a cloak. So beautiful, an old woman sighed to her friend. But the heart is an empty calabash. Cynthia heard them, but she did not care. Their envy was her nourishment. In her arrogance, she did not look where she was going. Suddenly, thud, she collided with someone, her basket of mangoes tumbling to the dusty ground. A bundle of firewood scattered across the path, and on the ground, on her knees, was Mama Michael, the oldest and most respected woman in the entire village. Her body was bent like an old tree branch, her hands thin and shaky. A collective gasp went through the market. The drumming stopped. All eyes were on the beautiful girl and the fallen elder. Cynthia looked down, not with concern, but with pure disgust. "Old woman," she snapped, her voice sharp, "why do you stand in my path like a stray goat? You have soiled my wrapper with your rotten wood." Mama Michael looked up slowly, her ancient eyes holding no anger, only a deep, profound sorrow. "My child, I am sorry. My eyes are weak. I did not see you." "Then you should stay in your hut where you belong," Cynthia shouted, the cruelty of her words stunning the crowd into silence. She turned her back, hissed, and strode away, leaving the elder to gather her firewood alone. But Mama Michael did not move. She remained on her knees, and then she did something no one had ever seen. She raised her trembling hands to the sky, and her voice, which was usually a soft whisper, became like thunder rolling down from the hills. "Cynthia," she boomed, and the entire market froze. "The mirror you worship will soon turn its back on you. Your beauty, which you guard so fiercely, shall melt away like shea butter in the midday sun. Your pride will become your prison. You will never know beauty again, until you have lived as wife to the ugliest man on this earth. Only then," the old woman finished, her voice dropping to a fearsome whisper, "shall your heart learn its lesson." A terrible silence fell. Even the birds in the mango tree stopped their chirping. Cynthia, halfway across the market, felt a cold dread wash over her, but she tossed her head and walked on. That night, as she sat before her mirror, she felt a strange heat on her face. Her reflection seemed to shimmer, to waver, like a mirage on a hot day. She saw a tiny crack, like a spider's thread, appear in the corner of the glass. The next morning, scream tore through the village. It was a sound of pure, animalistic terror. It was Cynthia. Her mother and father burst into her room to find her clawing at her face. The beautiful, glowing skin was gone. In its place was a rough, patchy surface, like the hide of a sick animal. Her nose had widened, her full lips were cracked and dry, and her glorious hair was falling out in clumps, leaving bald patches on her scalp. She had become a stranger to herself. She ran outside, into the morning sun, desperate for it to be a nightmare. But the chickens scattered in fear, and small children who saw her face screamed and ran to their mothers. "Mama," she wept, falling to her knees in the dust. "Look what has happened to me. I am cursed." Her mother held her and wept too, not for the lost beauty, but for the hard lesson her daughter was now forced to learn. "We must find Mama Michael," her father said, his voice heavy. "You must apologize. You must beg for her forgiveness." They rushed to the old woman's hut at the edge of the village, but it was empty. The fire pit was cold. Mama Michael was gone, and no one knew where. Cynthia's world shrank to the four walls of her room. She covered her mirror with a thick cloth, and refused to leave the hut. The whispers of the villagers followed her even in the darkness. Her beauty vanished like smoke, they said. She, who had been the center of all attention, was now invisible, a ghost haunted by the memory of her own face. Her pride had been burned away, leaving only shame and loneliness. Months passed. Then one day, a mysterious traveler arrived, his face hidden by the wide brim of a straw hat. He asked only for Cynthia. He gave her a message, his voice low and raspy. "The curse has a key. You must find and marry the ugliest man alive. A man of foul habits and a demanding heart." The traveler leaned closer. "You must serve him, not with your body, but with your soul. Only through this act of ultimate humility," he whispered, "can you be free." The words were a fresh wound. Must she truly marry a monster to become whole again? For days, Cynthia cried, her tears watering the dry earth of her floor. But deep within the pit of her despair, she knew this was her only path. One morning, there was a loud, insistent knock on the door. Her mother opened it and gasped. Standing there was a man who looked as though he had been cobbled together from spare parts left by the gods. He was short and hunched, with a great belly that strained against a tattered shirt. His skin was as wrinkled as dried okra, and his long white beard was stained with food. When he smiled, he revealed a cavernous mouth holding only 3 brown, crooked teeth. His breath smelled of old snails and fermented beans. He leaned on a gnarled walking stick. "I am Judas," he croaked, his eyes, sharp and quick like a lizard's, darting around the room. I have heard Cynthia is looking for a husband. I have come to claim her. Cynthia stepped out from the shadows, her heart hammering against her ribs. He was worse than anything she could have imagined. He was not just a man, he was a caricature of ugliness. But then, she caught her own reflection in the surface of a nearby water pot. She saw the monster she had become. The messenger's words echoed in her mind, "Marry him with your soul." Judas picked something from his nose and examined it. "Well, do you accept me?" he asked, chewing loudly. Cynthia took a deep breath, the smell making her stomach turn. She closed her eyes, swallowed her fear, and nodded. "Yes," she whispered, "I accept." The wedding was a quiet, mournful affair. There was no music, no dancing, only the shocked and pitying stares of the villagers. Cynthia wore a faded dress, her face a mask of resignation. Their hut was small and smelled of damp earth and decay. That night, Judas snored with the force of a wild animal, a rumbling thunder that seemed to shake the very walls. He drooled and farted in his sleep, his feet emitting a stench of rotten yams. Cynthia did not sleep. She sat by the small window, watching the moon and telling herself over and over, "I must endure this. I must change." Life with Judas was a trial by fire. He was not just ugly, he was mean-spirited and demanding. "Woman, my soup is cold," he would yell. "My back itches, scratch it now. Wash my feet, they carry the dust of the world." He complained about the way she breathed, the sound of her footsteps, the silence in the hut. Yet, through it all, Cynthia never uttered a word of complaint. She served him patiently. She rose before the sun to fetch water. She cooked his meals and washed his filthy clothes, clothes that smelled of sweat and forgotten onions. But something strange was happening. The more she served this ugly man, the lighter her own heart became. The shame that had bent her back began to lift. She started to leave the hut. She smiled at the children who once ran from her. She greeted the elders who had gossiped about her. She went to her old friends and, with tears in her eyes, begged for their forgiveness. She began to help others, carrying firewood for women whose backs were bent with age, sharing the little food she had with beggars. She was no longer just serving Judas, she was serving the world. One day in the market, a small girl tripped and fell, scraping her knee. Before anyone else could move, Cynthia rushed to her side, cleaning the wound with the corner of her wrapper and calming the child's tears. Unseen by her, sitting quietly under the shade of the great mango tree, was Mama Michael. The old woman had returned. She watched Cynthia's act of kindness, and a slow, knowing smile spread across her ancient face. That night, after Judas had fallen asleep, his snores rattling the rafters, Cynthia looked out at the moon. "Dear God," she whispered to the stars, "if I ever see my own beauty again, I promise I will never use it as a weapon. I will never forget what it feels like to be broken. I will never laugh at another's pain. I have learned." As she slept, a figure appeared in her dreams. It was Mama Michael, but she was not old and bent. She was radiant, glowing with a soft, silver light. "My daughter," the spirit spoke, her voice like the gentle rustle of leaves. "Your beauty has returned. It is not in your face, for it never truly left. It was waiting in your heart. You are now whole." Cynthia woke with a start. The sun was just beginning to stream through the cracks in the wall. She scrambled to the water pot, her hands trembling, and peered at her reflection. A gasp escaped her lips, but it was not a scream of terror. It was a cry of pure, unbelieving joy. Her skin was smooth and clear, glowing with an inner light that was even more profound than before. Her eyes shone with a new wisdom. Her hair was a thick, dark crown upon her head. The curse was broken. Her outer beauty had returned because her inner beauty had finally been born. She ran outside, not with pride, but with gratitude. Judas stumbled out of the hut, blinking in the morning light. He saw her and recoiled in shock. You are not my wife. My wife is ugly." Cynthia smiled at him, a gesture of genuine kindness. "Thank you, Judas," she said softly. "You were the bitter medicine I needed to heal." Soon after, news of the girl whose heart had transformed her face traveled to distant lands. A handsome prince came, not seeking a beautiful face, but the owner of a beautiful soul. He had heard the stories of her pride, her fall, and her redemption. He saw her and knew at once that her beauty was no longer skin deep. It was rooted in humility and kindness. Their wedding was a celebration for the entire village. But even as a queen, Cynthia never forgot her time in the dark. She treated every person, from the highest noble to the lowliest servant, with the same gentle respect. She no longer needed a mirror to tell her she was beautiful, for she had learned that true beauty is not what you see in the glass, but what you build in your heart.